So I got a message recently. It was an anonymous message, but it was a thoughtful one. And honestly, it actually made me pause and think. Now, this is what the person said, and I quote, "Why do many ladies in all these new age churches seem needy? Any man that comes that looks even just a little like a good Christian man, they will fall for him even if he is pretending. That's how many of them are entering into trouble." Oh. Now, when I read that message, my first reaction was not to agree immediately or disagree. My first reaction was actually, I just paused for a minute and I'm like, okay, I think this is actually a very sensitive topic, and it's not one that should just be jumped into without like really thinking about it. So today, I don't want to attack anybody. I don't want to shame anybody or disrespect any gender or anybody, actually. Neither do I want to sound like I'm sitting on a moral high horse. But I just want to talk about it. I just want to have a talk about it. The perception, according to this message, is sort of like the person has observed that there are some single ladies, especially, who seem to appear very, eager, if not over eager, to get married, and will then gravitate towards any man who looks or seems prayerful or churchy, for the want of a better word. And even sometimes ignore the red flags as long as he's in and around church and, just look, like I said again, churchy. And the end result, according to this person at least, is that some of them end up with the wrong people, end up with people who were not even sincere in the first place, who were just pretending. Now, that's the observation. It's not the conclusion. It's not my conclusion, at least. It's not my judgment. It's just the observation of the person who sent the message. Now, the first clarification I will make is that there is absolutely nothing wrong with a Christian lady wanting to get married to a Christian guy. There's absolutely nothing wrong in a Christian lady, believing that she would meet her husband in church. There's nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, on the flip side, the church is actually the most ideal place to actually find your spouse, because you are in many cases going to be finding someone who not just shares your faith, but if you're even in the same church under the same man of God, the person also most likely shares your doctrinal ideas, because for whatever we may think about it, we have different doctrines for different churches today. But if the person is in the same church as you, it means that you've been exposed to the same doctrinal and theological foundation. So you share the same view, you share the same worldview. I mean, it's just ideal in many ways, right? It's just ideal. So wanting to get married to someone who is in your church is not even remotely the problem. I think it's very important I make that clear. Now, honestly, I think where the issue now begins to become an issue is when that desire then somehow, somewhere turns into fear. Fear of being single for too long, fear of being left out of God's will, fear of being left behind, or even sometimes just thinking like, man, this might be my only chance. This is a man that God has sent to me. I cannot miss him. I cannot miss out on him, and all of that. And you see, the more this, I would call it mini desperation, goes on, you would realize that the question will change from, is this the right man for me, to, is this person available? Does he look spiritual enough? And for some people, if he's available and looks spiritual, or like I said, churchy enough, they go for it. And that's where things really, start to get very dangerous. Because, hey, let's be honest. I mean, being prayerful is good. Being churchy is good. Being a regular in church is good. But prayerfulness is not character. Church attendance is not emotional maturity. And, simply keeping up appearances should not be mistaken, with accountability. Someone can know how to pray and still be very manipulative. Someone can be tongue speaking and be toxic. Someone can, be serving in church and still lack responsibility. So when we begin to confuse spiritual appearance for spiritual substance, we might end up landing ourselves in trouble. And let's not even pretend like this thing does not happen, because we know it absolutely happens. Some men know exactly what to say. They know how to sound spiritual. They know how to just, behave and compose themselves enough for people to just feel like, yeah, it looks like this guy has an idea of what is going on here. They just know how to do that. And sometimes it's not because they necessarily want marriage. Some of them just want access. Some of them want marriage, but they want to get married to a church girl, and then they have to compose themselves, even if they're not all that. They have to align. Just when you're in Rome, you have to behave like Romans and all of that. And it is true that there are wolves in sheep clothing, right? There are people who don't come to church because they love God. They come to church just to actually seek for vulnerable people. They feel like that's the place they can find vulnerable people. and sometimes they're not wrong. And let me balance this. So this is not just a women problem. It's actually, it's also a men problem. It's a general problem with young people, of course, which I belong to, right, in the church, right? Because some men also think like that. Some men are like, as long as she's a Christian, as long as she's in the choir, as long as she serves in church, it means that it's all good. And the truth is that, there are Christian people who got married, who were Christians, who were actively Christians, who were serving in church, but the marriage still did not work. The marriage is still struggling. There are countless examples out there, right? So by itself, it doesn't, but I mean, being a Christian by itself doesn't necessarily mean that a relationship or marriage will work. I mean, there's no, it's not a guarantee. So I'd say the bottom line is being Christian is a good foundation. It's not just good, it's the best foundation, right? But it's not enough. That's not the be all and end all. There are so many discussions that still need to be had in terms of compatibility, vision, emotional intelligence, and all this stuff. There's so many other hurdles to try and climb over than just saying, oh, she's a Christian, he's a Christian, and then that's it. So instead of just asking, is this person in church, there are other questions that you should ask. There are other questions that are absolutely worth asking. Questions like, is this person emotionally healthy? I hope this person is not traumatized. I hope this person is not bringing emotional baggage on me. Questions like, can this person take responsibility? Questions like, does this person respect boundaries? In every sense of the word. Is this person accountable to anyone? How about our personal values? Do our values align? Because we might be attending the same church and our values don't align. The truth is, like I said, it's not a problem that people are looking for love in church. Like I said, it's the right place. In fact, it's the most ideal place to look for love, right? But it's not enough. That's a good foundation, but that's not all. More questions need to be asked. More important questions, more deep questions need to be asked before you just draw the line under it and say, yeah, this is someone I'd like to be with. And it is true that people are falling victim to wolves in sheep's clothing in church. And unfortunately, like I said, that's the case many times or sometimes. But when we actually intentionally have to have these kinds of conversations, it ensures that we are more informed, I think. So what do you think? Do you think the pressure to get married in church is helping people? Do you think it's actually helping people to find proper relationships? Or do you think it's hurting their chances more than it's helping? What do you think about it? And where is that balance? I mean, where do singles find that balance? Like I said, not just ladies, but even guys, where do we find that right balance? Okay, so do it to drop in the chat, and then we would have a discussion about it. And the anonymous link is still open. Questions, observations, and stories. I mean, that's what we majorly talk about. Today's edition was not so much about stories, but that's majorly what we do. This is story time with Goodness Eze. But I just thought we just give today's episode a different spin, and then just talk about it also because that was one of the main questions that was sent over the week. So, I mean, the anonymous link is in the description. It's in the description, right? So, just check it out and then drop your stories there. I share stories here. I share people's stories. I share my stories, and then we just have a talk about it. And it's just a healthy space to, share your stories and have people learn off them. Yeah. So do well to drop your stories in that anonymous link. Like I said, it's anonymous. Nobody would know that you're the one who dropped that story, right? My name is Goodness Eze. Thank you for watching. Do well to like the video. Please subscribe to our channel.